everyone, it's the Axle Shifter here, and I am back with the next Multiverse Wars episode number 86. And today, we're going to be doing a match between two teenagers who pretty much just have insane powers and just act extremely similar, just like most other characters in the show. So we have Delsin from the Infamous games, more specifically Infamous Second Son, and we also have Korra from the Legend of Korra franchise and Avatar in general. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into this one. Here we go. Delsin Rowe is the central main character of the second Infamous game, Infamous Second Son, and acts as a successor to Cole McGrath, the main character from the first game. He's pretty much a rebellious graffiti artist from the Akomish Reservation who pretty much discovers he's a conduit after touching another powered individual. Though then his unique powers, this allows him to absorb and use other conduits' powers, and when his people are harmed by the DUP, Delsin and his older brother do eventually head to the Settle to take down the organization and steal its leader's concrete powers, so he can use it to save his own tribe. So he's essentially just a power-copying superhero like Amazo, pretty much, or the Super Android. Yeah, something like that, or even Metal Sonic. So now let's cover his powers, abilities, and feats. In terms of strength, attack potency, and durability, Delsin would be within the large mountain ranges of power, or large mountain plus ranges of power, and likely even higher, since he's capable of converting enemies into energy and can absorb them, and can even match a post-training Abigail Walker early in the game. And Abigail is the same girl who scales to other conduits, who can lay waste to entire cities. Delsin also scales to this too, and is likely much higher than this, like I said previously. He also has destroyed Augustin's island fortress in a single karma bomb, and easily defeated Brooke Augustine twice, who defeated Abigail and Eugene, and was described as being the most powerful conduit ever seen. Delsin can even negate durability thanks to his matter manipulation, meaning that he can damage the target regardless of their durability and can just get around their overall power and durability, like I said before. So yeah, Delsin is pretty impressive when it comes to this category. Now as for Delsin's speed, he would be faster than light, aka FTL, because he can transform into pure light and photons to run at light speed. Plus he can travel through radio waves, which travel at the speed of light pretty much. He's also comparable to Abigail, who can react, fight, and control her movements while boosted by neon clouds, which allow her to become faster than light. And also her speed has also increased after training for years under Curtin K, and it's stated twice that she is just as fast as Cole McGrath, twice as fast actually, and Cole scales to Kessler, who can react to and dodge lightning bolts from close range after they've been fired, which removes the argument that it was just aim dodging, because it isn't. Delsin scales to all of this, and his speed is even greater thanks to his later laser focus ability, which slows down perception of his time from his perspective. This slows down time from at least his perspective, or perception anyways. So yeah. Next is intelligence and his overall skill. Delsin is actually far more intelligent than he appears to be, since he is capable of figuring out weaknesses in a fight and can pretty much come up with strategies on the fly essentially. He's even solved several mysteries such as the conduit serial killer and kidnapper. Plus he is incredibly inept and strategic in combat and has defeated several conduits throughout the game, ones that had over 7 years of experience, along with advanced militaristic training, and is able to familiarize himself and become adept with using his recently acquired powers in a short length of time. Anki regularly outsmarts and outmaneuvers DUP troops, and specifically trained to pretty much take down any conduit with a wide array of powers and abilities, capable of laying waste to cities once again, even on accident, and was even able to infiltrate and vandalize a large DUP base while taking out several soldiers completely undetected, which is pretty insane, but not really that considering his fast and light speeds, but you get what I'm saying. Plus, he also figured out Augustine's plan despite only given minor details, and was able to uncover various conspiracies tied to DUP, So yeah, pretty much just a lot of this stuff has to do with DUP and just him being a really skilled fighter and knowing how to use his wide array of abilities, essentially. And speaking of which, now we have his hacks, abilities, and gear. First, we have his most iconic ability, that being his power mimicry. Pretty much meaning that he can absorb and copy the abilities of other conduits, or just really any other character, honestly. Unless there's something, a nuke situation or something, but yeah, this is his power. This gives him access to multiple elemental power sets instead of just being limited to just one of them. His main power sets basically being his smoke powers. This gives him the ability to fire smoke and fire blast, smoke grenades, air dash and vent travel, explosive orbital drop attacks, smoke form for mobility and intangibility. Next are his neon powers. This grants him super speed, wall running, can fire laser beams and precision sniping, and can also, once again, slows down time from his perspective, giving him better perception speeds, and also stasis fields that freeze his enemies. Next are his video powers, which pretty much gives him the powers of invisibility, flight via his digital wings, can summon angels and demons and other digital creatures to battle for him, and it can also summon holograms and afterimages, technokinesis, and other digital constructs. And we can't forget about his concrete powers. This gives him concrete armor, shotgun-like projectiles, massive dive bomb-like attacks, petrification and paralysis, and even power suppression, as well as his superhuman strength, speed, agility, stamina, durability, and an accelerated healing factor, which allows him to rapidly recover from sustained wounds and injuries. And as long as the damage isn't fatal, and as long as he isn't harmed again before he has a chance to recover, or unless his body is just completely destroyed. And thanks to his powers, he can learn memories and even emotions through touch, can freeze his enemies in pretty much stasis, can slow down his own perception and time for better precision and speed, and he can break down his enemies into photons and particles, create weapons and constructs like his digital wings again, can turn into smoke, light, and other digital particles, can phase through obstacles and other attacks and people, can encase his enemies in concrete shells and disable his opponent's powers. And once again, you also can't forget his just chain in general, his main melee weapon. This allows him to deal damage at close range. And also his smartphone, which does allow him to photograph crime scenes and stay in communication with his friends. And he has a spray paint can too. I mean, this wouldn't necessarily help him out in this fight, especially considering everything else I just mentioned, but I mean, he still has it, so I guess it's worth noting. However, despite everything that he is capable of, Delsin still has his weaknesses. When he acquires a new power, he is actually unable to switch to his other powers until he develops his proficiency with that new set of power. Plus, he can't just switch his powers on a whim whenever he fucking feels like it. He has to constantly switch powers by absorbing energy from a different power source. That example being, if Delsin currently has smoke, but he wants to use his neon powers, he has to absorb neon in order to actually use the neon powers. And for the same reason, he can't use his multiple powers at once. Also, reliant on outside sources to recharge pretty much. But overall, Delsin is the only guy who can outrun a laser beam, but he is completely paralyzed by a midlife crisis, identity crisis mid-fight. He may also be able to absorb other powers, but his ultimate kryptonite is just a lack of variety in local public utilities. Korra is the avatar who succeeded Aang and was raised in the Southern Water Tribe, as she quickly mastered her water, earth, and firebending abilities before traveling to Republic City to learn airbending from Tenzin and developed her spiritual side, along with some help from the spirit of Aang. She also learned energy bending as well and eventually became a fully realized, fully powerful avatar, gaining full control of a powerful avatar state as well as the ability to wield all four elements essentially at a master level. So yeah, now on to powers, abilities, and feats. In terms of AP and durability, Korra would be within the multi-city block level to town ranges of power at the low end, since she's comparable to Mako and Bolin. Bolin once destroyed a large runway. Plus, Korra also fought against and matched against Torlok, someone who was strong enough to bloodblend without a full moon, making him superior to Katara, who fought Hama under a full moon, and bloodbending ignores conventional durability as well, to at least to a limited extent, and can control the moves of the opponent essentially. And Korra scales to all of this, though this is a massive lowball because in Korra's avatar state, she managed to draw power from Rava, who is known to be an all-powerful spirit, and as her concepts define the world, meaning that she scales to Tua and La, who embody the moon and tides, who are also engaged in an eternal dance to push and pull those that's responsible for the world's tidal activity, which resulted in Tao's death, also resulting in the disappearance of the moon, meaning that Korra in her avatar state scales to around moon level at the highest level in terms of her power, thanks to her avatar state. Plus, she also scaled to Unalak, who covered the world with darkness, and he was actually going to destroy the whole life within it and reshape it, making it another moon level feat, which means this moon level scaling is pretty consistent with Korra, at least in her avatar state once again. And as for speed, Korra scales to massively hypersonic plus combat and reaction speeds at the low end because she constantly fights characters who can dodge and react to lightning, like Zuko. However, she actually scales higher than this as she rode alongside the Spirit Lights, which are able to react and intercept Unava Tua, or at least that's what it's called, which calculates to around 2.9% this light speed, or at least sub-relativistic speeds. Now on to her intelligence and skill. Korra is a highly skilled fighter and a pretty fast learner as she managed to master Unalak's spear petrification technique and also reproduce Wan's technique for sealing Vatu away, which nearly worked before, Unalak's intervention, and as well as learning metal bending in a few seconds with only one piece of advice from Suoyeon Bifong, and is also recognized as not to be underestimated and pretty smart by Amon and Sahir, pretty much. So she's a pretty skilled fighter and also learns things pretty quickly. So now we have her powers, abilities, and overall hacks. First, we have her water bending, meaning that she is capable of creating large walls of ice, water whips, and water waves, strong enough to push back opponents that are much bigger than her. Plus, she can also launch herself high into the air and maintain a level of height or on a gigantic water sprout pretty easily. She uses this ability to fight off against several different aerial attacks and stuff. Next are her healing abilities, where she can use the water to treat injuries and certain diseases. This is a power she used to pretty much possess by some water benders taught by her by Katara, though this ability has not really been shown to be applied during combat right now, so yeah. Next we have her spirit bending, where Korra is capable of pacifying dark spirits and sending them back to the spirit world, though this is a pretty rare using water bending technique. And of course, we have her earth bending, where she regularly uses the earth bending during combat, where she's capable of pretty much using those things to just manipulate the earth around her, as capable of lifting earth targets levitated by other earthbenders, launching enemies into the air, throwing large boulders at her opponents, and she can also synchronize her earth bending with another person to increase the versatility of her, control of the bending, pretty much. And of course, we have the other abilities like fire bending, air bending, and plus we have the avatar state, where pretty much once she uses it, it heavily enhances her bending abilities and range, although she is not able to access the power of her previous incarnations really anymore, but still, Korra possesses great power and a huge amp while using this avatar state, pretty much, And if the avatar dies while in the avatar state, the avatar cycle ends with really no new avatar being born, so I guess that's a little weakness, you can say. Plus, she's once again also highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat, pretty much, having been learning since she was really young, so, of course. But now we have her weaknesses, although pretty much those being she can't fire bend during a solar eclipse, and also cannot water bend during a lunar eclipse. So, that's kind of it. So, at least in terms of standard weaknesses, I guess, but overall, Korra is the ultimate proof that you could have the raw power to reshape the tides of the planet, and wrestle primordial spirits, but also get humbled by some metal poison plotline or something. I don't really know what happened there, but yeah. But now that we've discussed both characters, it's time we talk about who would win this fight. And while both of these guys have tons of crazy powers and stats and stuff, I would have to say that Delsin would be the winner of this fight. And I will tell you why. First, AP and durability. While Delsin is absolutely a powerhouse, so is Korra, and is much more powerful than him, since Korra scales to much higher in this category thanks to her avatar state, which puts her up at around moon level, while Delsin already scales to large mountain level and likely higher at best. But yeah, he's really not matching Korra in terms of overall power. So yeah, so this one clearly goes to Korra. But for speed, it immediately goes back to Delsin again, since Korra may scale to characters who can dodge and react to lightning, and she herself may have sub-relativistic or to speed of light scaling at her highest. But yeah, Delsin is faster than light, meaning it's going to be very difficult for Korra to land many meaningful attacks on Delsin because he's simply too fast. But now we have overall intelligence and skill. Now both are highly skilled fighters and stuff and are highly intelligent, though Korra is absolutely the superior fighter and combatant, especially in her avatar state, since she pretty much picked up metal bending in seconds and can tap to generations worth of spiritual wisdom, plus there's the fact that she started training in combat when she was very young. And Delsin may be able to maybe master complex conduit powers in minutes and can solve government conspiracies pretty much instantly, but Korra is just simply way more experienced than him. Now there are overall powers, abilities, and hexes. Korra controls pretty much earth, fire, air, and water thanks to her bending abilities. Meanwhile, Delsin controls smoke, neon, video, and concrete thanks to his conduit abilities. Now, Korra does have more traditional martial arts mastery, and her overall arsenal of powers is more combat-based, I guess you could say. Delsin pretty much has powers that are much more, I guess you could say, out there and more versatile than Korra, since he can turn invisible with video, has fire precision abilities, and snipes with neon, can pretty much freeze Korra in a stasis field with concrete, and also allows her to maybe take her hits with like concrete armor, at least not with her avatar state at first. But yeah, also Delsin has an actually easy way to win the fight, since he could just speed blitz her, and by utilizing his neon powers, he could just trap her in a stasis field and rendering completely immobile, then could just use his matter manipulation abilities to break her down to photons and particles, completely bypassing her overall superior power. And while yeah, Korra's elemental attacks can also be basically rendered useless in this state too, because Delsin could just simply phase through them, and including her, and even use his smoke or neon dash can just convert himself into just intangible mist or just a light beam. So Korra's only real possible win condition here if she somehow managed to find out that Delsin is just dependent on outside sources to swap or even replenish his powers, because remember, Delsin can't just swap his powers on a whim. Or maybe if Korra somehow restrained Delsin, she could just theoretically attempt to use her like energy bending and stuff to lock down his conduit genes, or at least spirit bending somehow, making him a normal human again. But however, I see this being highly unlikely, not only due to the speed gap, but also Delsin just has far more ways to defeat Korra rather than Korra having ways to defeat Delsin. And Korra's ways of beating Delsin in the end, pretty much, yeah. So in the end, it turns out that a millennia of reincarnated spiritual wisdom and mastery over the physical world can still get you completely blitzed by a guy who could just hit you from the inside out. The winner is Delsin Rowe.